Hello everyone, and welcome back to another series with ArtSpark Texas. This series of videos focuses on people, places, and things. Hey everyone, in this series we're going to be talking about three important areas of art: portrait, landscape, and still life. The first three videos are going to help us just understand how to create these pictures more accurately, how to make our portraits look more like the person we're drawing, how to make our landscapes feel more realistic and have space, and how to get our still life objects the right size and in the right place, and also have that depth and dimension. The second three videos are going to focus on how we use portrait, landscape, and still life to tell a story. The supplies you'll need for this project are a sheet of watercolor paper, watercolor pencils, a synthetic brush, and a cup of water. But you could certainly do this project with just standard drawing supplies. Welcome to Lesson 1, Understanding the Portrait. In this lesson, we'll walk through a series of steps that help us understand the proportions of the human face. The thing that distinguishes one face from the next are really these proportions: the relationship of the eyes to the nose to the mouth, to the cheeks, to the chin, to the hairline. In step 1, we'll focus on getting the shape of the head. I'm using this reference example. We're going to try to kind of draw this character's or this face's brother today. You'll notice that the shape of a head is more of an oval shape or an upside down egg shape that tapers at the chin. This is the majority of face shapes that we see out there, but these can vary. Once you get the oval shape drawn out, draw yourself a vertical line. This line is going to work as our bisecting line. A face is symmetrical, so it's balanced on both sides, so we need that vertical line. We also need a horizontal line that we're going to draw in the middle of our oval. This is where we'll set the eyes. It's important that we remember that the eyes are in the center of the head and not the top area. Next, we'll place the eyes. First, we can make some measurements. You want enough room in between the eyes where you can fit the width of an eye. So we want to allow for that spacing. This is going to vary from person to person, but since we're creating a generic person today, we're going to give one eye space in between these two eyes. Make an almond or oval-like shape, and then draw yourself a construction line that goes down from the eyes, and we're going to place the nose in this space. The bottom of the nose is usually about halfway between the center of the eyes and the bottom of the chin, so we can draw that horizontal line in, and we can use the inside of the eyes to measure the width of the nose. I'm just going to put myself a little shape there to remind myself that's the bottom of the nose. Then I'm going to draw a construction line that drops down from the center of the eyeball itself, the pupil. That line is going to give us the width of the mouth. And this line will usually fall halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin. Now if we can go in and add some details like the nostrils themselves and the center of the eye, the pupil. Eventually we're going to get to the lips and parts of the cheeks, but that's going to all be in step 2. You're doing great so far. If you need to make any adjustments, remember that this person doesn't exist, so we're kind of creating this as we go, but keeping these proportions in mind are going to help us when we start drawing a more detailed picture of someone we know, perhaps ourselves. Now, moving on to the lips. There are all different sorts of lips, but a key factor to keep in mind is that women's lips are typically more full than men's, in particular the top lip. So looking back at our example, I'm drawing a male face today, so I'm going to draw a relatively thin upper lip and a slightly fuller bottom lip. Since we're inventing this as we go, you could come back in and add details like a line for the chin. Okay, now that we've covered some of the key important factors of the face, like the eyes, nose, and mouth, we can start coming back in and thinking about the actual shape of the jawline. We can also sketch in the chin, and eventually we'll get to the neck and the top of the head. As you're sketching in the shape of the face, in particular the jawline, pay attention to the mouth. The mouth is connected obviously with the jaws, and so it has to turn in at that area. We can also go ahead and start sketching in the eyebrows. If we go up to the back to the top of the head and take that eyebrow shape. Now we're making a generic face here, so we don't have exact dimensions, but everyone's eyebrows are going to be a bit different. Sometimes they turn up, sometimes they turn down. Also, the laugh lines or smile lines that are around the mouth and around the eyes. I encourage you all to think about your own face, maybe even perhaps look at your own face as you're making sketches and see where there are lines on our face that kind of tell the story and give the detail of our face. Another area that often distinguishes our face is known as the philtrum, that area between our nose and our lip. Each person has a uniquely identifiable set of marks right there. So that's just a good detail to put in this generic face, but also to look for when we're doing portraits later. Next, let's use the outside edge of the eyes and draw a construction line down. This is going to help us measure for the neck. Typically, the neck lines up with the outside edge of the eyes, and we can use the bottom line of the nose and the eyebrow line to measure for the ears. So now we've worked away from the inside of the face and we're measuring some of these things that happen around the outside of the face. Oftentimes we tend to draw the ears a bit too small, but we have to remember they're covered up with hair, and as we draw in the hairline, they'll blend in a bit more with the face. So now I'm starting to construct the top of the head and the hairline itself. This shape is going to vary obviously by hairstyle and might be one of the more difficult ones to start at first. I'm starting with a rounded form for a male, and then I'm working on the part and the hairline. Once again, this is an invented figure, so we can have fun with this hair. You may even want to find a reference, maybe a picture online or a photograph you have around. I see that my ear needs a bit of adjustment as we go. Sometimes when you draw in a new part to the portrait, it reveals maybe an area that was unfinished or an area that you need to go back in and spend a bit more time. I'm just going to spend a few moments cleaning up this drawing, maybe claiming some of the lines with darker lines on top, erasing out some of my construction lines. Try to keep in mind, in particular if this is the first portrait you've drawn in a while, that this takes time and effort. The more portraits we draw, the more comfortable we get, and the more we're looking for these measurements that we've talked about today, using the eyes to measure the nose, to measure the mouth, to measure the chin and the jawline, the neck, and the hairline. And eventually, this all becomes second nature. Important thing to remember is that a drawing is a set of ingredients, and we don't just draw it the first time and get it right? We have that eraser for a reason. We can adjust, manipulate, modulate things, taking a break, coming back and looking at it. And eventually, I think if you're looking for these measurements and proportions, you'll notice that your portraits improve tremendously. I'll spend a few more moments and just put in a bit of shading, and then we'll talk about maybe how we push this further with watercolor paints to get some highlights and shadows on the face. Now that I'm fairly satisfied with the sketch of the face, I can start thinking about where highlights and shadows might appear. And I want you to think first about your highlights. And I want you to think about sunscreen. When you're applying sunscreen to your face, where are those key areas that the sun will hit your face? The nose, the chin, the cheeks, the forehead, right? Those are where highlights are going to usually exist on the face. And then shadows, we can think about those areas that are maybe covered or tucked under. Our eyes go back into our head. Our nose, we know, sinks into our face. Our mouth does as well. Obviously, our hairline will typically cast a shadow. Our chin is in front of our neck, so that will cast a shadow. The ears are at the side of our head, so there may be a bit of a shadow even cast on our ears. Okay, that was a lot of information, but now you've got such a better understanding of the human face, and next time it'll feel that much more natural. Go back in with your watercolor paints and pencils and fully realize this drawing is a painting, and thank you so much for joining us today. We'd like to say thank you to all of our ArtSpark funders: Texas Commission on the Arts, Christopher and Dana Reeves Foundation, St. David's Foundation, Austin Public Library, City of Austin Cultural Arts, and the Donald D. Hamill Foundation.